This week on Hometown Ghost Stories, the island of Okinawa, Japan, has been inhabited for thousands of years. The earliest found human remains date back over 22,000 years, and the island has seen countless battles and bloodshed. From kingdoms vying for power hundreds of years ago, to the Battle of Okinawa in 1945 during World War II, the entire island now seems to be infested with lost spirits of former wars. From the haunted caves to abandoned hotels built on sacred land to Air Force bases and former battlefields, many locals avoid the haunted shores because of the spirits that linger. Join us as we dive into the tragic and bloody history of Okinawa, Japan.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
The thick summer air hung heavily in the humid, overcast sky. Miss Sweeney watched from the steps of the daycare building that she was in charge of on the military base. 32 kids, varying in ages, ran all throughout the playground. Recess time would run for about 45 minutes and pretty much served as a break for the women working there, as long as the kids played nicely. It was midsummer and brutally hot, adding to the stress of the inflated number of children at the daycare since school was out. Miss Sweeney leaned against the door jamb and scanned the playground and surrounding buildings. Next door on one side was the housing building where she lived, which was simultaneously convenient and annoying. Easy to commute, but noisy days off. On the other side was building 2283. That building gave her the creeps. It was a storage building now, but it had formerly been a housing unit until the murder of 2 consecutive families caused the higher-ups to shut it down. It got to a point where people who lived there began seeing and experiencing strange things, and nobody wanted to live there. Miss Sweeney often wondered if there was something dark and malicious haunting the house, and if whatever it was could also be haunting the surrounding area. It was mostly just paranoia though, because nothing strange ever happened at the building, and the only strange things reported at the daycare were people claiming to witness unusual activity going on at the storage building next door. So, Miss Sweeney and her staff tried to ignore it as much as possible. Suddenly, her daydream was interrupted by a commotion by the fence at the edge of the property. There were probably 12 kids, all gathered by the fence separating the playground and building 2283. Miss Sweeney shuddered and hurried over to see what all the commotion was about. As she approached, she saw several kids tossing toys over the fence onto the property of the storage building. An irrational flash of panic jolted her nerves as she anticipated having to go into that yard and collect the toys. She shouted for the kids to stop, to which they did. They all turned around to face her, and she asked what they were doing. One girl responded in a matter-of-fact manner, "Tossing toys into the yard next door." "I can see that," Miss Sweeney responded. "Might I ask why?" she added immediately and regretted it. The answer sent chills up her spine. The girl simply said, "For the kids next door to play with." But there were no kids next door. I'm Jesse Wilkins, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Okinawa, Japan. The history of Okinawa, Japan stretches back thousands of years to prehistoric times. There are quite a few theories surrounding the origin of the earliest Okinawans, whose remains date back as far as 22,000 years ago. Farming on the islands developed in the 12th century, and the communities grew. As more and more people came to the island, territorial conflicts began. This led to a boom in the development of defensive castles, or gusuku, which gave the era its name. From the 13th to the 15th century, 3 major political spheres developed: Hakuzen in the north, Shuzan in the central area, and Nanzan in the south. All three traded with the Ming dynasty in China and adopted elements of its culture. While these three kingdoms vied for power, they were eventually unified by the king of Shuzan, forming the Ryukyu Kingdom in 1429. The Ryukyu Kingdom lasted more than 400 years and developed a booming trade with Japan, China, Thailand, and the Philippines. The kingdom came under control of mainland Japan in 1606. It was officially designated Okinawa Prefecture in 1879 under its first governor, Naoshi Nabeshima. On April 1, 1945, a fleet of 1,300 US ships and 50 British ships closed in for the invasion of the island, better known as the Battle of Okinawa. The battle lasted 3 months and involved 4 US Army and 2 Marine Corps divisions. Upon landing, the Japanese put up virtually no resistance on the beach, so the landings were relatively unopposed. The Japanese withdrew into the caves and in the rocky hills to force a battle of attrition, according to historian John Ray Skates. In total, over 12,000 US soldiers, sailors, and Marines died during the fighting. The Japanese launched the largest kamikaze attack of World War II. Japanese planes went crashing into Allied ships, sinking 26 of them and severely damaging another 168. Almost 40% of US service members who died in Okinawa were sailors lost to these attacks. The Japanese military suffered much higher casualties, with over 100,000 troops killed and another estimated 100,000 civilians who died in Okinawa. Many of those were convinced to commit suicide by the Japanese army. Their army had the civilians so terrified of what the Americans would do to them that thousands were convinced to jump off the cliffs to their deaths on the south side of the island. Among the Americans killed was Army Lieutenant General Simon Buckner Jr., the highest-ranking military officer killed in the entire war. He was taken out by Japanese artillery fire in the final days of the battle. The Battle of Okinawa was a series of conflicts, including the battle for Hacksaw Ridge, where Army medic Corporal Desmond T. Doss rescued 75 wounded soldiers. This earned himself the Medal of Honor. The Allies planned to use Okinawa as a base to attack mainland Japan, dubbed Operation Downfall. On August 15, 1945, Japan announced its surrender, avoiding further bloodshed. The United States took control of Okinawa until 1972, when they returned to Japan. Today, Japan is a valued ally of the United States. There are still 31 US military bases in Okinawa, covering about 15% of the island. One of the first airstrips taken on day 1 of the Battle of Okinawa was what is now known as the Kadena Air Base. While the American air base is still there today, it seems as though the spirits of the soldiers lost in past wars still haunt the area. Kadena Air Base is full of haunted stories. One evening, an Air Force security policeman, today known as security forces, decided to stake out the grounds to see if they were really haunted. He spotted an entire regiment of Japanese ghostly troops that began marching towards his police car. The officer struggled to get his car rolling and accidentally drove through the entire formation of hundreds of ghostly figures. He refused to patrol that area ever again. Building 2283. One building on Kadena's airbase was notorious for its hauntings and rumors of its bloody and horrifying past. Eventually, they would stop housing families in the building and turn it into a storage facility before demolishing it in 2009 due to its terrifying reputation and frequent paranormal activity. It's been rumored that in the 1970s, an Air Force officer murdered his wife and 2 children before taking his own life in Building 2283. Another family was quickly moved into the home, and news was apparently buried by the higher-ups. It wasn't long before things went south for the next family in their new home. They were haunted by unrest and paranoia, especially affecting the father. Eventually, this family would meet the same fate as the previous residents when he took a knife and stabbed his entire family before slitting his own throat. Either the Air Force hid this news from the public, or both of these tragic stories are just legends. There is no evidence of any of these deaths at the base, but the rumors have lingered for decades. Regardless of what actually happened at Building 2283, while it was being used as a storage shed, passerbys reported hearing the sounds of children crying as well as strange laughter coming from the building. In one case, there was the report of a ghost of a woman who seemed to be washing her hair in the abandoned house's sink. On one hot summer day, a few USO employees were curious about the rumors, so they went to go check out the home. Despite it being over 100 degrees outside, They reported that it was ice cold inside the home, as if somebody had left the AC on all day. But there was no air conditioning unit inside the building. They also reported seeing bloodstains on the curtains and floor. Quote, "It was an extremely eerie experience in the house. One could almost feel the presence there." Next door to building 2283 is a daycare, and teachers complained that the children on the playground kept throwing their toys over the fence. When they asked the children why they were doing this, the kids claimed that the children on the other side were asking them to. The teachers were shocked by this response, since the building on the other side of the fence was abandoned. But the hauntings didn't stop there. The building had garnered such a reputation around the base as being paranormally active that they started doing ghost tours around Kadena, with building 2283 being one of the main attractions. While one tour group of 30 people was standing outside the structure, everyone heard a phone ring from inside. But the home had no working phone line connected to the house. In the mid-1990s, another tour group witnessed the curtain parting, and others claimed that the house would glow at night despite no lights being on inside. Several witnesses claimed that they would witness the ghostly figure of a samurai riding a horse that would glide through the yard and directly into the living room of the home, passing through the wall as if it were never there. On Halloween night 1994, author Jane Hitchcock, who was writing a book about the ghosts of Okinawa, stayed in the home and performed a seance. During this, she claims that she spoke with the spirit of a little girl who was afraid of the man on the horse. Every time she asked a question, the flame on the candle would jump 4 or 5 inches. She also recorded EVPs during the session, which sounded like whispering voices. When asked if she would ever return to building 2238, she claimed that she was so spooked and unnerved by her experiences that she would never return to the house again. When the decision was made to tear down building 2283, workers attempting to destroy the building kept getting delayed as they would report headaches, hallucinations, and a bizarre amount of workplace injuries. It was almost as if the house was fighting back. The ghostly samurai that was spotted at building 2283 has also been spotted riding the road to Camp Foster up Stillway Drive towards base housing. During World War II, the Japanese had a field hospital located on the site where Kadena's golf course is now located. When the Americans took control of the airfields, Japanese nurses committed suicide in a nearby cave. Today, Okinawans refuse to go near the cave because of how haunted they believe the location is. These female spirits are also said to haunt the surrounding land. At Camp Hansen, there have been many reports of a bloody World War II-era ghost strolling up to Gate 3. The Marine Guards began to refuse to stand at Gate 3, and the entry point was eventually closed. The bloody soldier reportedly would walk up to the gate and ask for a light. In one case, a Marine claimed that he actually lit the ghostly cigarette for the man. Once the cigarette was fired up, the ghost vanished. In 2008, a security video showed what appeared to be a black shadow figure run from behind a sign. He ran over to the other side of the road. In the video, you can hear the security guards talking with each other about how they're both seeing the same thing, both of them in disbelief. On the eastern shore of Okinawa is Maida Point. The ghost of an old man is said to haunt the tomb near the water. Rumor has it, every time this spirit is seen, a body will eventually wash ashore on the beach within a few days. This is the site of many suicide jumpers who ended their lives by jumping off the cliffs. This was also the site of another Japanese field hospital used by the Imperial Japanese Army during the war. Scuba divers have reported seeing ghosts underwater and have even captured EVPs of ghostly underwater voices. There have been so many aggressive spirits at Maida Point that American males are warned to avoid walking around alone during the night. Hitchcock reported that a number of US men have been harassed in the night by ghostly women. These spectral women are dressed in World War II-era Okinawan garb, and they are reportedly so consumed with anger and hatred of the evil American troops that the ghosts will attack them and try to throw the men off of the cliffs. From the haunted shores of Okinawa to the multiple haunted air bases and battlefields, it seems that everybody you talk to on this island has a story of ghosts. Many people share their own experiences on Okinawa, and it's overwhelmingly confirmed that ghost stories aren't just tall tales here. Many of them go on to talk about Okinawa as a whole, and many of these places within it seem to have some sort of connection with the other side. With so much death and tragedy that happened on this island, it's not surprising at all that Okinawa would have so many lost spirits. Many communities do their best to respect their space, while also giving the visitors a look at some of the more well-known haunts. So stick around as Rob, Dave, and myself break down some of these cases and dive into some more notoriously haunted places around Okinawa, Japan. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 132. We are back in Japan to cover another haunted location. This one is Okinawa, also pronounced Okinawa or Okinawa, but depending on where you're watching or who's saying it, it all seems to be pronounced differently. I'm joined by Rob Coakley or Koklai or Rube Kokloff.
I like that you are fighting for your life to not get an email about how you pronounce things on this episode, because
just clearing that up, just clearing it up ahead of time, because I don't know.
Because you know they're coming.
Yeah, as an American, like growing up and learning about World War II history, everyone just said Okinawa, right? And then the documentaries I was watching, most of them were saying Okinawa, and then it sounds like the Japanese people actually just say Okinawa, which I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, we're joined by Dave. Hi, Dave.
I like how you pronounced it every possible way so that you definitely mispronounced it at least twice.
At least 2 times.
Or all 3 times. It might have just
or maybe all 3.
Yeah, I don't know. But that is Okinawa. I mean, the battle is just such a crazy battle. So many deaths. It's insane. And just how many civilian deaths is staggering. I mean, talk about over 12,000 U.S. troops. Also, these numbers vary depending on what source you look at, but it seems like it's around 12,000 U.S. troops, 50,000 Allied troops total, and then 100,000 roughly Japanese troops, and then another 100,000 civilians. And the civilian one is staggering because there's so many. Though now a lot of them were convinced. We'll hop into it, like the details in a bit, but a lot of them were convinced to commit suicide because the propaganda told them how evil the Americans were and how they would just torture them if they caught them and things like that. And then other ones, the Japanese army was ruthless during this war. I mean, they would just use them as body shields, and they were arming the children. And it's just everything about this entire World War II battle is just so gruesome from start to finish, and just the sheer number of lives that were lost in this short span of time, because the battle, I think, lasted just under 3 months. So it was relatively quick compared to other battles in World War II. So pretty nuts.
Sounds like it's going to be quite an upbeat episode from here forward.
Another fun one here in Hometown Ghost Stories. But I want to give a big shout out to everyone who's tuning in. We got some gifted memberships before the stream started. Potato gifted 10, another Vice gifted 10, Bayou Card Breaks gifted $19.99 in Super Chat. So thank you guys so much for the donations and the gifted memberships and everything. Keep them coming so we can do more live investigations. We have one coming up, I believe, next weekend, right? Another live investigation.
We do.
Right. We do. What night of the week is that? So we're going to start planning for it. Sunday?
I honestly
Friday.
don't remember. I think it's Friday.
All right. See, this is why we talk about these things on air.
On air. We do this on air. This is raw and real. This is as real as you can get on a show. You get to hear our company discussions. What other podcast is brave enough to discuss their company business while doing a show?
That's right. So Brodad weighs in and says, Dave is a 3rd-degree black belt in Okinawan karate. It's pronounced Okinawan. Yes, if you're wondering where the first M of MMA Dave comes from, it's from his, well, that would just be mixed. Yeah. But he mixes Okinawan karate with all of the other.
Nice save, Jesse. Great save.
I'm thinking, like, where's he going with this?
Yeah.
It's either that or the mixed drink that he can't wait to pour. but that is that is a true fact. Dave is a black belt. So have Adam chat. Actually, I feel bad for even bringing that up. I wouldn't have brought it up, Brodad, and bring it up, because as soon as we were talking about it, we're like, oh, Dave, are you going to mention that you're an Okinawan karate black belt in the show? And Dave's like, no, because I won't hear the end of it for a year. last time I made a mistake with talking about MMA, we would never. That's literally been his nickname ever since he mentioned it. Potato dropping $2 in super gas. Super chat, I'm sorry, says Jesse Ghost in Japanese is Obake. How do you pronounce that one?
I believe that was correct.
It's not
Painted.
opaque.
All right, so according to Velcro, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to do all the pronunciations. Velcro says Okinawan. Okinawan.
That I can almost 100% guarantee is incorrect.
Yeah, that doesn't look right.
I still think we haven't done it correctly yet, but it is what it is. You all know what we're talking about. And what else we're going to talk about briefly is a couple live shows we got coming up. October 18th is our live show in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Come by, get your tickets. Tickets are on sale. Link for those tickets are in the show notes. If you can make it to Massachusetts, we'd love to see you. It will be a live show. We just added a band to the show, most likely. We're still waiting to iron out the details there, but there should be a live band that's going to play for a little bit. And then we have another opening podcast, Hometown. I always forget the name.
That's the name of it, actually.
America's Hometown Horror.
America's Hometown Horror. We'll be doing a live podcast with some trivia. There'll be some giveaways. There will be vendors. There's going to be beer. There will be other drinks if you don't like beer. And then we're going to go live and do a live show. It's going to be a lot of time. A lot of fun.
Cider. A lot of cider in October at these breweries. So you're going to be able to get cider, and you can go to hometownghoststories.com, which is where we have all of our events listed. You can find the link there as well. You can also find merch there. People have been buying merch. Dave's getting a little less upset with Jesse and myself. He's not bothering us quite as much. There's a lot less layers for him to wear when he shows up at our house every single morning at 4 a.m.
Look at him now. He doesn't have sleeves.
He doesn't even have sleeves. He had to take off his sleeves to make some new shirts for us to sell. So that's what's going on there. But we also have our event on Block Island, and it's very important we bring this up because at the moment there is only 3 rooms left at the main hotel that we are doing this in conjunction with. We have also locked down our other investigation locations, which are the ones that we were really hoping to get. So this event is going to be amazing. We can't wait to do it, and quite fitting since we're talking about another haunted island today.
Yep. So that's Block Island, the 25th and the 26th of October, 2024. It's going to be fun. Like I said, if the rooms do sell out and you do still want to join, we will have a limited amount of tickets if you want to arrange a stay elsewhere. There are a few hotels that should be operating at that time, or you could probably Airbnb it. Should be plenty of stuff there. Oh, look at that. There's Holly in chat. Holly is one of the people that helped us set that up, and she will be there. Exciting. All right. Let's hop into the hauntings of Okinawa. So it's not just World War II. It's also, I mean, there's been plenty of conflicts there for thousands and thousands of years. I read one report that said that they have found human remains that date all the way back 22,000 years ago, which is a long time. So it's obvious that people have been there for a while. Battles have been fought there. There were 3 different factions that were vying for power, and eventually Japan took it over and unified it. And it's just been a nonstop battle over there over the years. I mean, obviously they've been at peace and they're an ally of the United States now, which is great, but there's plenty of history here. So many deaths. It's such like a spiritual place where I was listening to a lot of interviews with people that have lived there and have talked to the locals. And it's not that they're necessarily scared of ghosts. It's that they have so much respect for their resting places, and they have, maybe some of them, there is a fear of them, but people they just kind of live amongst the spirits. And it's kind of a different take than we have here in America. You have your haunted locations. People are afraid of them. You grow up with spooky stories. People avoid those places, or they go into those places to be macho and show off to their friends, or they grow up and start doing actual paranormal investigations. It's such a different culture of spirituality over here as it is to over there. And a lot of it has to do with religion. You know, when you deal with Christianity, you're dealing with good versus evil. That's how it's taught. When you're over in Japan, where you have a lot of Buddhism, it's more of living, respecting the spirits, acknowledging that they're there, but they don't really drive the spirits off into hell or banish them. It's kind of different. They kind of just, for instance, they do have exorcisms in Japan. But when they do them, it isn't necessarily driving the evil spirit away. It's more so being like, hey guys, let's learn to live with each other. So the Buddhist priest will go in there and they will exercise the house, but it's not the same as it is here.
But if you're not exiling, if you're not exercising the spirit, is it an exorcism? If you're just saying like, hey man, let's all be cool, or is there,
I don't know if that's the technical term that Buddhists would use, but that was the term that they were using in an interview I was listening to. So they will go out there and do certain kind of rituals to put the spirit at ease and basically like, hey, you either got to go somewhere else or you guys need to learn to live in peace together. But it's obviously it's a place where they don't like building on sacred ground. There's a story about a hotel that got built on sacred ground. Everyone told him not to. And we'll hop into that story in a little bit because I didn't cover that in this episode, but it's supposed to be one of the more haunted locations in Okinawa. So we'll cover that in a bit when we hop into that. But it's basically, they not only do they say don't build on sacred ground, don't dig up sacred ground, but they also just straight up won't even go there. Like some of these caves, particularly on the south side of the island, there's plenty of them all over the island, of course, but the locals won't even go there. And it's not because they're terrified, but I think it's mostly out of respect. It's just so much different than it is out here. But we started off by talking about Kadena Air Base. That was kind of the main focus of this episode, was a bunch of different things that have happened in and around Kadena. So this air base was kind of run down. Like you could land like smaller planes before the Americans got there, but the Americans were able to take this base virtually without a fight on day one, because the beaches, whether they chose not to fight there because they felt it wasn't a battle that they could win on the beach, the Japanese moved back and chose to fight a war of attrition in the caves. And this was effective when they first landed. So, I mean, the Allied troops were able to land virtually without a fight on the beaches. And the battle really started happening once they went inland. But Kadena Air Base was right there. They took it on day one, basically no problem. They fixed it up, and this was their main plan: was first of all get the air bases. Second of all, they needed to conquer Okinawa, and because Okinawa, basically, if you look at a map, it's like southwest of mainland Japan. What the Americans needed to do was take Okinawa. That way, they have an air base closer to the mainland of Japan. Then they can launch attacks on Japan from there. It was crucial in the fight for World War II. Also, the Japanese sent in the Yamato, which was the biggest battleship ever created. And they sent it in to basically beach this thing and use it as a turret to completely wipe out the Allied troops that had already invaded the beaches. So had this thing landed, it would have created an absolute shitstorm for the Americans. But Americans got word of it coming in, and they launched like 1 billion planes at this thing, and they were able to sink the Yamato, which was very lucky for the Allied troops that they were able to get that intel on them and go sink that boat, because it would have been a much different battle had that happened. But Allies,
like luck. That sounds like good intel.
Good intel and strategy. I mean, they were fortunate enough that they were able to sink that ship, because the anti-aircraft weapons on this boat were insane. Like they would have been an absolutely terrifying thing to get in there and try to sink this battleship. I mean, like I said, it was the biggest in history, I think, at that point. I know the Germans had a huge one too. They basically refer to the Nazi one as like the Death Star, and that's a completely different battle, but they were able to cripple that one in a different fight. Completely different part of the world, though. But once they captured that, I mean, obviously there was plenty of death in and around there. The Japanese had a field hospital that was built currently where the golf course next to Kadena Air Base is now. So there's a little bit of a dispute online about where this field hospital was actually located. But essentially, when the Americans took over, a bunch of the staff had committed suicide in the caves. This also happened in a different part of it as well, where there was another field hospital. Like 17 nurses committed suicide on a different part of the cave. I believe that was in Maida. And there's just so many reasons for this place to be haunted. Even if it wasn't World War II stuff, it could have been any of the other thousands of battles that had happened while they were constantly fighting for this, for control of this island. So it's plenty of reasons for it to be haunted. But we started with building 2283, and I think we kind of hop into this one a little bit. This is, when you look up haunted Okinawa, everyone's talking about building 2283 on Kadena Air Base. So it's gone now. We cannot go there and confirm or deny whether or not this building is actually haunted. They demolished it back in 2009, but there's these stories back in the 70s of these murder-suicides that happened, almost like an Amityville situation, kind of, where you had a family in there. It's believed that something dark drove this man to kill his wife and 2 kids and then shoot himself. And then apparently, I think it might have been the Air Force. It might have been the Air Force that was in control of this building. Apparently, they had kind of brushed this under the rug. And the next family that moved in, they moved him in like right away. And then eventually, essentially the same thing happens. It said that this guy killed his stepdaughter, and I think it was the entire family got killed again, this time by a knife. Issue I have here. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the exception of the second family being murdered, this is almost exactly like Amityville.
Right. Where had that family stuck around in the second
That
battle.
seemed to be where that was leading to in that situation.
Right. So it seemed like that would have happened in Amityville had they not actually moved out. But I think the difference with Amityville, the big glaring difference, is it is a documented murder that actually happened, multiple murders in that house. This one, there is no documentation that this ever actually happened. We don't even have names. We have nothing. It's solely basing this off of rumors and legend and assuming that the story is true. Now, for this to happen once and for the military to sweep it under the rug, whether it was the Air Force or whatever, maybe, but still probably not, right? That's a service member dying. Families need to be notified. This stuff needs to make the news. An entire family gets murdered. You can't just sweep it under the rug. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. This is the 70s, right?
Government never sweeps things under the rug.
No, it never happens. But then for it to happen again, and then it also gets swept under the rug, and how much under the rug did they really sweep it if everybody's talking about it 50 years later?
Yeah.
Right. If we all know this, and it's this big thing swirling around, it's the most popular thing that's happened on Okinawa since World War II, then how in the world are we confirming this? If I don't know, it's just, it is what it is, but we base it off of it. And whether or not these murders and deaths happened inside this building, there's plenty of reasons for it to still be haunted, because whether or not,
can we back up for a sec?
Sure.
With this whole government sweeping thing, I don't want to go too tinfoil hat here, but
Oh man.
if we're all right, take for instance the rumors around Area 51, right? The government sweeps paranormal things under the rug. If we're going to go with this conspiracy theory, and it is a conspiracy theory, but if what's going on there is something paranormal and the government knows about it, similar to Area 51, I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? Then I don't think it's that crazy that they would sweep it under the rug. So let's say that there is something evil and paranormal going on there. The government knows about it and things keep happening and the government doesn't want the public to find out about it. Maybe they would sweep both situations under the rug.
We swept a lot of things under the rug in the last 3 minutes.
yeah, we're gonna have to clean out under the rug soon. Maybe, but what are they gonna do? So they didn't really sweep the paranormal under the rug, because not only do they embrace the haunted history of it, if they were looking to sweep the paranormal stuff under the rug, then they wouldn't host they host Halloween tours at the base because of how notoriously haunted it is. So let's lift up the rug. Let's sweep the dust back out, right? Let's sweep out from the rug. Okay.
Let's hang the rug out back and beat
Okay.
the rug, beat the dust out of the rug.
You can now
Yeah.
get your hometown ghost stories broom in our merch shop, just so
Mhm.
everyone knows.
Yep.
Yep.
And then we'll
Which
start
broom?
working on
Fly it to Salem.
rugs. Look at that. Anyways, I just feel like if they were going to hide anything, if they were going to sweep anything under the rug,
Oh my god.
it would be the murders, not the paranormal. I don't know. It's just, but
But they did sweep they attempted to sweep the murders under the rug. That isn't what we were talking about originally.
I would say it's probably easier to sweep a ghost under the rug than a dead body.
You couldn't sweep a ghost. You wouldn't know how to sweep a ghost.
Okay, just because you're a 3rd-degree black belt at Okinawa and know how to do a leg sweep or so, or whatever the hell you're going with this.
Dave's leg sweeping the dust under the rug. Yeah, anyway, so regardless of whether or not these stories actually took place, if they did, absolutely tragic, terrifying, and could something evil be in this house driving them to do it? I don't know. But it does seem like regardless of these things actually happened, there was some serious paranormal activity that happened at this place, and it's been reported for decades. Like I said, it wasn't torn down that long ago. It was torn down in 2009. So if things started in the 70s, then you have, about 40 years of paranormal activity being reported in this building, to a point where they stopped moving families into this building, either because of the murders or because of the ghosts or because of both. And they started using it as a storage unit. And this was right next to the daycare. and we mentioned the daycare, we mentioned the opening stories, and then we mentioned it later on. The teachers at this daycare would respond to the children who were doing strange things like taking toys and throwing them over the fence. Now, that's not the craziest thing to ever hear of. I have to hop over my neighbor's fence all the time and collect toys because, kids are hitting home runs or just chucking things over the fence. It happens. But it's what the kids said that
At least they're not sweeping the things under the fence.
That's right. It's completely pointless to play with brooms outside. It's just inside toys. Anyways, what they had told the teachers was that the children next door had no toys to play with, and they had to throw them some toys to play with. But there were no children next door. It was a vacant building at that point, and this is what kind of terrified them, because not only do you have these children seeing these ghosts, but you also have reports of people hearing children laughing, children crying from inside this vacant building. You have all sorts of noises. And then when they started doing paranormal tours around Halloween season at Kadena, you had more and more people seeing strange things at this house. It wasn't just during the tours either. You had another report of a bunch of Air Force guys who, on a hot summer day, they went over to the house to see if it was really haunted. They said when they went into that house, it was ice cold, like someone had left the AC blasting all day. But there was no air conditioning. I don't even think they had power on in this building at the time. But there was no air conditioning. It was freezing cold. And then they noticed bloodstains appear on the floor and on the curtains. And these were bloodstains that weren't there before, and they weren't bloodstains that were there after. So it was obviously something concerning. Not the first time we've seen that. I've actually seen a few of these descriptions of this house have been described in other poltergeist cases, even around the same time, if we're talking about the mid-70s, late 70s. Although these ones have been going on for years. You also had a case of the house was glowing at night. Like they had, now it's not like the lights were on, but they said it had this weird kind of glowing aura to it. And we saw that in the Black Monk of Pontefract case, where the neighbors had said like the house is just glowing at night. It was kind of a strange thing. It's hard to picture, but I guess the house has some sort of a glow to it. So did this one. But so many hauntings here. You had another group that saw the curtains get pushed open, which would be horrifying to think about. The only thing you could say that could be debunking of that is maybe somebody was inside the vacant building at a time. Maybe they're setting it up to try to spook someone.
I do like your timeline here. You're like, there was blood appearing on the floor, and then there was another crazy haunting. The curtains opened.
Yeah, I'm kind of good. Yeah.
Well, honestly, I think the most interesting haunting here, and the one that caught my eye and absolutely sent chills down my spine, was the kids tossing the toys over the fence for the kids next door to play with, because kids are largely innocent, especially the younger ones, and they would do, when they're doing things, they're just usually matter of fact and just telling you what they're doing. No real reason to make stuff up. You know what I mean? So when a kid says that, it's an innocent gesture, toss the toys over the fence to play with the kids next door, and there are no kids next door, but there were kids that were murdered next door, is just eerie on a whole other level.
It really is. So then you had the lady, Jane Hitchcock, who was writing a book about the hauntings of Okinawa. I guess she actually got to stay in the house, and she did a seance there. And she had said that she was communicating with a little girl, and the girl had said that she was afraid of the man on the horse. And this is another haunting that was frequently seen here, was a lot of people would witness a samurai figure riding a horse, and he would go straight into the home. So you have to wonder what was in that spot before that home sat there. And that also makes you wonder if, even though the home is now demolished, is that spot still paranormally active? I'd love to know if other people have seen visions of this samurai riding a horse in that area. And he seemed to like ride right into the house, and they said particularly into the living room. So I wonder if maybe this is something residual that was where he would, I don't know, park his horse.
You go back to the 1200s when the Mongolians were invading Japan. They didn't like have a huge presence in Okinawa, but they did send a couple contingents there because they were trying to demand Okinawa help them, and they kept refusing. And then there was at least one skirmish between the Mongolians and the Okinawans at that point in time. So, and we're just talking 1200 to now, and all the different conflicts that have arisen since then. So it could be so many different residual hauntings from so many different eras.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, like obviously World War II is what's fresh in people's mind when it comes to battles that happened at Okinawa, but you can go back thousands and thousands of years and pick a battle. It could be anybody from any one of these. So, I mean, Kadina's got some crazy hauntings. You also had, oh yeah, so she stayed there. She had said that the candles were going crazy every time she would ask a question. I'm talking about the author there, Jane Hitchcock. Whenever she would ask a question, the candles would the flames would shoot up by like 5 inches, which is considerable. And then she also got some EVPs that sounded like whispering voices. And she had said that she refused to go back to that building. So when somebody writing a book about haunted places and doing paranormal investigations at a place says they refuse to go back to a place, I mean, that must have scared the hell out of her if she's refusing to go back. Because honestly, when you go investigate a place, you look for stuff like this, right? Like, oh, we caught, if it's the opposite for us, right? Man, if we caught evidence like, like some cool EVPs and communications, we'd be like, all right, when can we go back today?
When can we go back to Hinsdale?
Exactly. So,
Although, if we went to Japan, right, and we did an investigation, think about how much it would cost us to go to Japan. The smart play would be to get, if we got evidence, to be like, it was so scary, we can never go back. And it's just because it would cost us $20,000 to go back, and it's a bit pricey to get to that side of the world.
it is on the other side. That is true. But yeah, Kadina's full of ghost stories. You also have Made a Point. I actually really like this story. It was the ghost of the old man, and he would walk kind of near the tomb at like the water's edge. And they say that people who would see him, whenever somebody would actually see this ghost, within a couple of days, a dead body would wash up on shore.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's almost like an omen or the premonition. It's just like you almost feel guilty if you see the ghost. Like, oh gosh, now someone's going to wash up dead. It's pretty crazy. But this was another location of a field hospital during World War II. Another spot where a bunch of people jumped off the cliffs, and some say that the waters below have encountered swimming ghosts. And I thought this sounded crazy. I'm like, swimming ghosts? Well, maybe. I mean, so many people died in the waters here. I think it was 40% of Allied troops that died in this battle were in the waters because so many battleships were getting sunk and troop transport vessels and everything. But I was watching, I think it was Expedition X. And it's my first time actually watching Expedition X. They have a budget. So they had a lot of cool stuff over there. But yeah, so they go to Japan. Actually, the Penhurst event that we did, the lady from the show is sitting right next to us. I don't even think we talked to her. But anyways, that's
Jessica Chobot. We talked to her.
Did we? Oh,
yeah.
I must have missed that one while I was sleeping most of that.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. I also like to think of these swimming ghosts as synchronized swimmers instead of just regular swimmers.
That's fun.
Just doing routines.
Japan was pretty good at that, actually. The synchronized swimming. Anyways, the EVPs that they caught on that, like, it really did sound like people. I was watching that episode. They did a pretty cool one on Okinawa. Anyways, but yeah, underwater ghosts, that's something I've never really thought to look into. I mean, we've covered a few of them, like on Fox Hollow Farm. It had like the haunted pool where they've caught some evidence in like the water. And there are techniques that you could use with the water to try to communicate. I haven't really dove too much into how to do it, but it's something. And catching EVPs underwater was really cool. But those outside,
we're gonna film your training for it though. We're gonna train your underwater ghost training, your underwater ghost hunting training. We're gonna film your journey.
How did I end up being the guy that has to do the underwater ghost training? Because I said it was cool.
Yeah,
because
you're the one that's, because I'm not going in the ocean. We know that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
that's a thing. I'm very brave and I will go anywhere, but I'm not going in the ocean.
No. There's a horror movie that came out a couple of years ago, a French movie called The Deep House, that was about underwater ghosts. An underwater haunted house.
Tough to investigate that.
It was fictional, so yeah.
Noted. So you also had Camp Hansen. Camp Hansen, this was the one where they had so many sightings of this bloody Marine, and he was dressed in World War II garb, but he was like covered in blood from head to toe, where he would walk up to gate 3 and he would just stroll up, and it seemed like something very residual, but it also seemed relatively intelligent because he was going up to people, and he would just walk up to the guards that were working the gate and ask for a light. He's like, hey, can I get a light for a cigarette? And everyone would just get spooked out. You know, you get a bloody corpse basically walking up to you. I think it was pretty clear that it was a ghost. And eventually one of these guys just lit a cigarette, and that's when he vanished. And I had read a few different reports of this ghost sighting online, and they said every time that they would light his cigarette, that's when his spirit would disappear. But it seemed like he was showing up like almost once a week, which is insane to report. I mean, geez, people wait a lifetime to try to see something like that, but terrifying, and so terrifying that they ended up shutting down that gate or that whole entry point. And some of the guys refused to go out there and work it because they were so terrified of this ghost. Again, the military's, I'm sure they close gates for different reasons, but this is the legend now that this is the reason why they closed the gate, was because they just kept seeing ghosts over there. And it's a crazy story, man. It really is.
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it because I don't know how much detail they went into with this.
That was about it, so get ready for me not to answer it, but go.
When he lit the ghost cigarette, did he successfully light it, or did he attempt to light the ghost cigarette?
I don't know. But they said when he lit it, so it sounds like it actually lit. I don't know how the physics of that work with a ghost cigarette, but
not a lot of scientific research on ghost cigarettes.
That's true. I wonder if the ghost just like kind of thought it was lit, and then he's like, "Thank you for lighting it." One funny story Andrew was telling us, our brother Andrew, Captain McSlug's been on the Field show a few times. So he's a firefighter, and he had, I think this is back when he worked on an ambulance, but he had responded to a scene where a guy was so drunk that he just kept stragging around. He's like, "Before I go to the hospital, can somebody just light my cigarette?" And he's just holding a cigarette in his mouth. And Andrew, without a lighter in his hand, just goes, "I got you, buddy," and just acts like he lit it. And I think this is Andrew's like one of his first few days on the job. And the guy, like, he was so drunk that he actually thought he lit the cigarette. He goes, "Thanks, man." And just sits down and smokes the unlit cigarette. And I guess like the captain was there, and all the other firefighters had to like go around the side of the ambulance or the fire truck or whatever so they could laugh their ass off at this guy who thought that his cigarette was lit. Kind of reminds me of that story. Anyways.
My other question is, he disappears when you light it. So when you don't light it, is he just chilling there for the week until?
I don't know. Maybe that's why
did he solve the haunting? Like this residual haunting was just coming back with his cigarette week after week after week, and then somebody finally thought to light it, and then the ghost passed on to the next world. Was that?
I am curious. Like if they didn't light a cigarette, like if this is how they finally made it disappear, which again, the stories vary depending on what source you're looking at. Does he stand there until morning?
Right.
Take a picture of him. Like, how long is that ghost going to linger there before you take a picture of him or take a video of what's going on here? So it makes me question the story a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, I don't know. It's a really cool story. The other one that was crazy was, I think this one was at Camp Hansen. I don't have the note in front of me right now, but there was another story where this guy had heard that this land was so haunted and there were so many ghost sightings. He's like, "You know what? I'm going to go out and patrol this area." I think it was military police or something, but he went out and he parked his vehicle there. And he said he saw an entire Japanese army, like just come out of the woods, and there were clearly ghosts. And he was so terrified that he had a hard time getting his vehicle moving. And then when he finally did, he was driving directly at him, and he drove directly through the army of ghosts, and he never went back. So that's another pretty crazy story.
Or he committed an atrocity.
Well, maybe.
That could be the other thing.
If I committed that atrocity, I'd be like, "Yeah, that damage is from all the ghosts I ran over.
It was all ghosts.
Must have been the ghosts I drove
like
into."
Jesse, there's 37 bodies on the ground.
They're like, this is gonna be hard for us to sweep under the rug.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that is Camp Hansen. This is again, you could pick your spot in Okinawa. I kind of focused more so on the military bases in this episode, but there's also a haunted hotel story in Okinawa that is, I believe they recently tore it down.
Oh, did they finally? I've looked into this one.
Finally did, yeah.
I've looked into this a few times. So
right. So this one they built. I'm trying to find a better source for it real quick, but the Nakagusuku Hotel, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Another word that I'm definitely
absolutely. That is Nakagusuku has to be right. There's no way that is.
It might be
incorrect.
Nakagusuku. It's like sometimes with these Japanese words, when you look at them, you're like, "Oh, you just pronounce all of the things," and then they're like, "No, it's Naksu," I'm like, well, there's so many extra letters. I don't know. Different languages are hard.
I mean, we can't really talk English.
Now is
the worst with that.
Yeah, as I said, passerbys earlier, but we'll edit that out. Anyways, so this hotel, it's so it was basically built on sacred land, and this was a big no-no. This is a big no-no everywhere, but with the Japanese people and the Okinawans, they specifically do not want you to do this. I'm pretty sure nobody ever wants you to build on sacred land anywhere, but it happens all over the place. So rich business guy, he buys up this land and decides to build a hotel anyways. And the locals warned against it. And okay, so first I'll kind of give you the mythical story, or the story that people like to tell on why it's so haunted. So built on sacred land, everyone warned him not to. Then they said that he started to go crazy and the project was being delayed because of the ghosts. And he was so determined to get it finished that he started sleeping inside the hotel, and he died inside that hotel before the project was finished. And that's why this is not an abandoned hotel. This is an unfinished hotel and abandoned. But so the hotel was never completed. And then the ghostly sightings started happening. It turned into an attraction where people would go visit these haunted ruins of the hotel that was never finished. And it was, still on sacred land. So this place probably is or was haunted, but not for the reasons that we just gave you. So no, he did not actually die in this hotel. I'm pretty sure he's either still alive today or he died recently. This was a wealthy business. He was a businessman who took a gamble on building this thing. And the issues that he had was this hotel was on the same road as like a natural historic site. I don't know if it was a graveyard or a different historical building. Again, I have not found good notes on this. I'm going by memory, so correct me if I get anything wrong. But it was a big, long, narrow road that was specifically used for that. So it was terrible not only to transfer supplies up to, but they also wouldn't allow him to widen the road for when the hotel was open for business. So that way that they could get more traffic going in and out. He wasn't able to widen the road because of the historical site that he was building this thing through. Basically, the investments dried up. He ran out of money. The hotel didn't get completed because he ran out of money, and he abandoned the whole project. That's the real story. Now, it's still on sacred land. The whole island seems to be haunted. Who knows what happened there before? It is on a historical site as well. So there's every reason for this property to actually be haunted. But this is another one where legends built around this, and they kind of created a spooky backstory. Oh, the guy went crazy and died inside the thing because he couldn't finish the project. But it really just came down to, it was a bad idea from the beginning. And then he thought a lot of doors were going to open for him, and they did not. So he swept it under the rug and moved on.
Or they opened on their own. The doors opened on their own.
That's right. Yeah, they could have. Yeah. But I mean, this place was super cool looking. It was like on top of, it is on top of a hill. I mean, apparently on a very sacred hill. So bad idea. But I'll pull up a couple images so people can see it in chat. But as far as I know, I think they did recently actually knock this thing down. So
it looked like it was going to be a pretty cool hotel too, to be fair. Like, just the design of it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. It just really looked like it was a project that was kind of doomed from the start. So there's no look of it up there. So would have been a cool looking hotel, but overall the project didn't work. And honestly, if you're building on sacred ground, I am kind of glad it didn't work, because you shouldn't have been there in the first place. But place ended up getting tagged up with some really cool graffiti. I always respect cool graffiti. Well, sometimes I respect cool graffiti. I hate when they put graffiti on like
sacred ground,
and cool monuments. But on a building like this that shouldn't be there in the first place, this had some pretty cool stuff.
Well, he shouldn't be able to acquire if it's so sacred, right? We see this often. It's like, this is overly sacred land. It's like, well, then why is it available to be acquired?
So, well, it's sacred according to who, though, right? It's
right. As far as I know, with this one, sacred ground technically, but it was right next to like something like America would have like the National Registry of Historic Places. Yeah. As far as I might be getting some of these details wrong again. I couldn't find a good source to reference this stuff right now, but it's right next to one of those. So technically he could build there and buy that land, but it was a big no-no. It's like, no, that's sacred land. Please don't build on that. And he's like, middle finger, I'm going to do it anyways. And then the project was doomed. So there was a lot of things that happened that people do chalk it up to. The ghosts of the land were delaying your project. The ghosts of the land were telling these construction workers to walk off. And apparently there were some construction workers that while they were doing business on it, they were reporting eerie things happening and walked off the job site. But when you have so many verifiable lies connected to this case, you don't know which ones to believe and which ones not to believe. But what you can believe is shouldn't have built it there in the first place. So that's probably why it didn't work out, in my opinion.
Could be.
It's very interesting, and to the point, just every time we cover a different, country that just their history is so much deeper than America's, I always chuckle a little bit because I'm like, anytime we cover something in the US, we're like way back in 1797.
And that's way back for the United States too.
Right. That's far back.
Almost all the way back.
Yeah, that's pretty far back. And then I can pull up history of Japan that predates that by
20,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah, basically 20,000 years.
Yeah,
And it was like,
even England.
Yeah, anywhere, basically, except for here for the most part. Like the history is just so vast. So the amount of things that could happen on the smallest island like the smallest main island in Japan, right? So it's just the possibilities are endless of the events that have happened at any of these places predating the stuff that was built there.
You're absolutely right. But this island's full of them. I mean, you got a couple other ones as well. That we hit on a lot of the main ones, but there was plenty of others too. I mean, you have so much stuff with the shamans and the Buddhists and just the haunted locations that were haunted before World War II even happened. You deal with the military bases now, but there's so much going on over here that there's definitely room. Also, this place is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So it's far away, but from what I've looked at in Japan, I mean, Tokyo looks cool and everything like that. I don't really like cities. I think if I were to go to Japan, I would probably go to Okinawa, to be honest with you.
So Japan's my number one. Like Japan and New Zealand are like almost tied, but Japan edges it out a little bit. I do want to see Tokyo, but I do want to see somewhere like Okinawa more than I want to see Tokyo. I want to see like, just because Japan is gorgeous when you look up just some of the landscapes of the place. It is just a beautiful country overall.
It is one of the most aesthetically pleasing places. Even like the structures they have, like the architecture is really fascinating also.
Yes, beautiful stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to learn Japanese for like 2 months once.
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't master it.
I did. I forgot all of it.
Damn. That's
you know how good I am at mastering everything.
Yes, Master Rob.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult language to learn.
Yeah. Well, at what point in your life were you trying to learn it?
Right around the night that you slapped me in the face and punched Jesse in the chest.
Okay.
I think that point.
Which time? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just found it. I was like, all right, let me get to the bottom of this and find the actual facts on the hotel. And I pulled it up, and this is just another one that's full of lies about it. So they're saying that the developer went to the hotel with the intention of staying the night in the unfinished property to prove that the area was not haunted. However, it was said that the next day he was found insane and disappeared soon after. No, he didn't. Other rumors say that the hotel was actually in operation for 2 months. Complete lie. This place never opened. And at that time, a child drowned in the pool. It's like, why are we doing this? Like, you can look at that hotel and be like, that is never finished. Like, it's clearly that is not done. But they said that the drowning affected the business and forced it into bankruptcy. Even today, upon visiting the hotel, you can still hear the cries of the small child. So you might hear cries from the small child, not a child who died in the hotel swimming pool that was probably never built or filled with water. So it's just, why do we do this? Why do we make stuff up like this?
They're like, let's just find all the hotel cliche hauntings and attribute it to this hotel as well.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, so that is the start of Okinawa. There are enough things here to do another episode, but such a
1,000 parts
tragic history of this place. But luckily, I mean, they've gotten so much influence from, the Americans have been there so long. I mean, American air bases cover like 15% of this entire island. There's like 31 or 32 bases out there. So there's obviously a lot of that culture being mixed in. There was plenty of Chinese culture that was mixed in. Just seems like now it's in a really good place, economically, and just the whole, it's like some of these beaches are some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, but such a dark history. It's like, you got to wonder as a tourist, like, am I pissing off any spirits or any locals by just showing up at this beach that they consider sacred? Because a lot of these tombs are like lining the beach. It's just, do your research before you hop over.
And I know you said that they're more in touch spiritually with their ghost and more connected, but the descriptions of Japanese ghosts, as we've covered in some of our history of ghosts episodes we've done in the past, are Japan has like some of the most terrifying types of spirits that there is.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they're more in touch spiritually. It's just completely different way
different
of dealing with it, because obviously people are into it over here. Look at us talking about ghosts every week. But that is that's kind of a culture. But I was also listening to some interviews because I was like, I'm trying to find some paranormal investigations on these places. And according to a lot of the people that I was listening to interviews, because they've been asked about this, they're like, they don't really have like ghost hunting teams out there. It's not really part of the culture over there. And it's, I don't know. I think it's just because, again, they just approach it differently. Like they're like, most of them believe that ghosts are real and that they are there. And it's just, why are they going to go search for it? They know they're there. It's just very different. It's kind of strange to cover this when it's like such a different, other side of the world, completely different set of beliefs and a completely different way of handling ghosts. So
definitely.
That is pretty much it for Okinawa for now. It was a fun one. Thank you all for tuning in. Do we have some reviews we want to cover here?
We do, and we're going to do some different ones. We're going to not do any Apple reviews this week. I'm going to hit some other reviews that we've gotten. And this first one actually came from Facebook. This one is from Dane. He said, okay, I got to give you all a 7-star review.
Hell yeah.
We got 7 stars from Dane. Says he's been listening and catching up at work on Amazon. I'm up to episode 101, and there's been some times that I've been in tears listening to you guys and just picturing some of the things you're talking about. A coffin falling out of the back of a hearse, I'm in tears. I feel like there's more context needed there. Like it sounds like we were just like,
it's called a coffin flop.
Yeah, it's called the coffin flop. Can't get to watch you live because of my work schedule, but I'll try to get to you guys when I can. Keep on keeping on and hope to catch you all soon. Well, thank you for listening, Dane. Any way you can do it. And this next one, I'm definitely going to pronounce this name right. I think it's Kayla. It's Kaela.
Yeah.
Kayla A. And this is 5 stars from New Zealand. Hi guys, sorry it's a little lengthy. I did cut this down a little bit because she also gave us some suggestions for places and covered some of her own personal experiences. But she goes, hi guys, sorry it's a little lengthy, but I love you guys. Yes, Dave and Rob too. I mean, come on, of course you love me. You guys are good for a laugh, and I love how in-depth you guys get and how you try to debunk as much as you try to prove. It's refreshing, so you're going to like this episode a lot. I heard your podcast on Wellington, and I love how Americans are clueless to Maori pronunciation. Sorry, thought I'd help with the pronunciation, especially you, Jesse and Rob. If anyone is great at pronunciation, it is me and Jesse.
Yes. As is evident with this episode.
Exactly. Love the show. Keep it up, and definitely come to the land of the long white cloud. We won't disappoint. And it's fitting. I forgot that she was from New Zealand, but that's my other dream destination.
Oh yeah, gotta go to the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, the Shire. That'd be awesome. Yeah. I heard they turned the Frodo's house or Bilbo's house into a little bar.
Oh,
so that would be amazing.
Which is nice because after the first set of movies, they left it to rot until they came back for The Hobbit, from what I remember. So,
Timothy on Facebook says you are a good show. I want to be a ghost. Thank you, Timothy. We would like you to stick with us. No rush on the ghost part.
Yeah, but we do appreciate you tuning in. Any other reviews?
No, that's going to do it for the reviews this week.
Cool. All right, let's hop into our patrons real quick, starting with the VIPs. Starting with the VIPs, we have KCW, Brendina77, Kathy F, Ghost Nurse, Janet T, another haunted dust bunny swept under the rug. Dave, you're fired.
Bye.
That isn't a Patreon. I was just announcing that for the show. No, thank you. No, that is a patron. Dave, you're fired. Tess, we have Captain McTibbles. The fish steals Dave's fishing pole tackle box, his shoes, and his car, then gives them to the lake giraffe.
Love it.
Yeah, that's good. We have Jesse is the most handsome, strong, and brave. Do you want me to read that one again?
No,
yes.
That's
okay,
not even what it is.
Dave D. Kate, Steve M. Blazora, Sharon V. Glitter Tees, Cami from Washington, Kelly C. Jennifer P. Nick Donnie N. Inspires Gaming, Allison V. Robert H. Rob's Spooky Badonk setting off REM pods, and Anna C. Janie We have Mallory K, Mom and Pops W, Papa Squatch, Lisa J, an old-timey sex worker, Mike Oubliette Blake. They can be VIPs. Next up, let's hop into the Warren's Wards. Let's kick that off with Jeremy M, Beth C, Serena, Shawners, Apple, Steph, Leslie F, Rachel G, Her Lady Spookship, Nefarious Chadpoles, Wahini Pirate, I Am the Bridge Witch, and I Hate Rob, Julie Gooley, Eugene M, Arcade, Jaws the Revenge is the second best shark movie of all time, Hunters, Colby, Kath Q, The Ghost Ninja Swept It Under the Rug, hashtag MMA Dave. DC, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, next HTGS guest, the other Rachel B, Sarah Cook, Zeta Chimera, Janice G, Rachel B. Dave's new name is Sleeveless Samurai. We have Il Cadavere sulla Riva. Nailed it. I throw dog toys over the fence for ghost pups, Steffe. That is very fun. Love that. Stan, the man with the ham hands, and Rob secretly loves fishing. Still true to this day. Next up, jump into the Ghost Pirate Mafia. And let's start it off with Emily P, Whisper, Shane J, Mrs. Nardozzi, Kitten Clown, Shane O'Mac, Macho Mandolph, dropping an elbow on a barlog. Oh, yeah.
On a what? On a barlog?
Balrog? Balrog.
Balrog? Isn't that something? Isn't that a
Balrog? Balrog.
Balrog. I think that's a Lord of the Rings thing, isn't it?
I don't know.
Continue. I will investigate.
Joe, Sherry Perry, Trevor S. You can't triple stamp a double stamp, Lloyd. Christina S. Kate C. Chrissy, Kelly C. Isla D. Bloop. Crazy Legs 2005, West Virginia coal miner, hashtag the Revenge of Cake Dave, just call me Bree, Miss Macabre, Michelle, Naroku, Cold Warrior, Rob chowing down on some fresh Ohio pizza as he studies the history of sweeping it under the rug.
And an update, a Balrog is the thing that Gandalf
fought. Yeah.
Oh, the big fire thing?
Yeah.
Okay. You shall not pass. Yeah, of course. Banana Ketchup D from H-Town, Meta A, Sarah B, Dominica, Monster Mom 04, Allie, Dark Snark. Hi, Rob. The haunted clown doll is in your house. Happy hunting, and let us all know when you find it. Actually,
it's not in my house. It's
haunted clown doll has arrived for people that didn't see it on Discord. We do have one.
It will never be here, is what I can promise.
My wife is not happy that it's here. We got to figure this out.
I'm about to have a homeless clown doll because my wife also not going to allow it.
We're about to have 3 homeless hosts because Rob refused to have it. Anyways, I don't know where I left off. We'll go back to Monster Mom 04 because she's awesome. We also have Allie Dark Snark. Oh yeah, that's where we left off. Hi, the haunted clown doll is in your house, but actually it's in mine. All right, Megan S, Morgan S, Wayne C, Siri, help me find my doll's haunted pants. Crystal Quinn, aka not a Rob fan. The only thing harder than Daddy Rob is this heat wave. Alicia E, Thick Boy Freddy, allegedly eating soup from a clown shoe after poorly done butt stuff in the Al Capone suite at the Clown Motel. Swanee, Hometown Rosetta Stone with Jesse now available on Dave's GPS. I'm sorry, actually, we have to edit that because sometimes we run ads for Babbel. So Hometown Babble with Jesse now available on Dave's GPS if they're still sponsoring the show. Sam from Nepal, Joe R, Al Capone, missing the shows are all about me, Huggy Bear. I am traveling Jesse, the weather observing nuclear physicist in the Ed Hardy coffin, and Angus Young is my hero. Next up, Solar Flare, Mariah M, Kiralee J, Anthony. I wish I was more fiscally responsible so I could afford to be a VIP T. Cody G, Brandon W, Hooply Whooply, Bridge Witch, and the Polkageist. That's the Patreon list. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to be on Patreon, $3 a month will get you there. Ad-free episodes. As you move up the tiers, you unlock more stuff, VIPs, free shirts and stuff. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. And like I said, there will be a live investigation next weekend. We'll be back on Friday for a side content episode, but on Sunday, once we iron out the details, if the internet provides, we will keep you guys posted. So keep an eye on Discord as we unleash details about our next live paranormal investigation. And you too can join in. Block Island, October 25th, 26th. If you also want to join us on a paranormal investigation, make sure to get your tickets. There are only a couple left. So excited about that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we sign off?
No, that's going to do it for me.
Cool. All right. We'll talk to you next time. See you.